Welcome everybody to This Week in X from Crushing Comics. I'm your host, Crisis with a K, and I'm joined here by Tyler, Fariha, and Harry, and we are here to talk Hellions number 9, out on the 3rd of February, 2021. Here's your warning. We're here to talk about every detail of this issue, possibly the other issues out this week, possibly everything all the way back to X-Men number 1 in 1963. So this is a full spoilers program, and consider this your due and ample warning. Now, as we do, we're going to do our lightning round from the gut reaction to Hellions before we start digging into the details of the plot, starting with Tyler.
Well, Wells continues to delight with snappy dialogue and balancing humor with action, and pretty on point on the usage of the mutant powers. Segovia's art looks somewhat different in a good way, this issue, to me. But the female characters still have really big bust, which kind of annoys me a little bit. All in all, I give it 4 cups of tea out of 5.
Oh, we're still going.
Harry.
I'm ready.
Oh, no.
I thought this was just like a rock solid issue of Hellions. You know, it really it's exciting. It's funny. I think this is a funnier issue than some in the past. Just a good setup. You know, this is a book that's kind of gotten far enough that we just have these small beats where you're just hanging out with the characters in the gym and you're just like as engaged, just seeing their little advancements and developments. And it's just like a great time. And I really like the cliffhanger. I think it's the perfect kind of energy for what this book is. And yeah, I'm just still like so happy with this.
Awesome. Fariha.
So I really enjoy Hellions, all this time has been enjoying it. This one did feel a little bit like a setup issue. And then, there was still the funny things and all of that. There were some moments that we're going to talk about later was really good. I feel like this would read much better if I was reading it in a trade paperback, but with just this issue being, I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. It didn't leave any special memory other than that one page we're going to talk about later. But I will say this was like a 3.5 LOLs out of 5.
I should say, all right, I'm going to give it a 4 ratings out of 5. We're going to go deeper into this.
Ratings. Okay. So look, I actually feel really similarly to the whole gang here. I think it was a really great issue. I really enjoyed it. I do start to fear when X books just do comedy and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of plot development, that it kind of turns into some of how I feel about a book like Marauders, where you look back and it starts to feel like empty calories. So I really love that we start out with a really meaty scene between Mastermind and Sinister, but I think there's only so many times this book can get away with just making us laugh and not really like having plot, even though there was a lot of character development here. So I did love it, but it just makes me a little bit nervous because I feel like we've had a few issues like this from Hellions, and I'm looking for density is generally the thing that I am seeking. That said, who is a bigger dirtbag than Mastermind to pair with this team of dirtbags as a villain dirtbag? I don't know. There's few X-Men villains as dirty and as baggy together as Mastermind, which brings us to our first point of discussion here, which I love the way they titled it in the book, The Benign Betrayal of Nathaniel Essex, as we have the meeting of the dirtbags over some tea and a reckoning between Sinister and Mastermind that actually reveals a lot about how some characters and some readers might be feeling about this utopic experience that Krakoa is professing to be giving everybody. Tyler, what did you think about this meeting of the dirtbags?
Well, first off, I think Mastermind is lying. I mean, the Da Hong Pao cannot be that rare if I can find it on Amazon. So I think, I was like, oh, wait, what is that? And I Googled it. I was like, oh, it's not that rare. You can find it. And then we started out with the joke about the cape and the smell. But I think one thing I kind of jumps out at me is that Sinister is attempting to rope Mastermind into a particular plot. Like, what kind of plot is he trying to get him into?
I mean, it's definitely, he's kind of revolting from within a little bit on the Quiet Council. It's like we're starting to now see how people are pulling in different directions a little bit. I thought that was a really intriguing part of it. I don't know, Harry, what did you think about this meeting of the masterminds?
I just thought it was delightful. I don't have a lot of experience with this with Mastermind as a character, but I do like that you are seeing, you know, these. I mean, dirtbag's the word. I can't think of a better one, but how they're chafing up against the idyllic kind of settings around them, and you know, if Wells just wants to keep writing just kind of scuzzy characters, just complaining about their scuzzy lives, I'm locked in. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed Mastermind though in this book. I not to cut ahead, but I did figure out his whole power and kind of like approach right before the book kind of reveals everything, which I was happy about. I think like every new character introduced to this book has been pretty great.
Fariha?
So, I mean, obviously that first, I was just mostly worried about the fact, like not worried, but the thing is that the plumage was not stored properly and now it smells. And
well, it's not a cushion.
Yeah,
that's right. Like, you know, that anytime there's like a smell that it's brought in, I'm almost like, so I was mostly thinking about what kind of smell it must have been. So I was really focusing on that the whole conversation. But like Tyler, I was also thinking that Sinister is plotting something. So I didn't think Mastermind is doing anything or he's just a pawn in this. I don't know this character. I don't know what he's doing. But the thing is, like, I feel like it would be very disappointing to see if he's coming and then doing one-upping Sinister, at least, you know. But then also at the same time, it also brings it like someone with that kind of power. Krakoa has no handle on this character. Like like X-Force has no handle on it. Like, you know, X-Factor has no handle on it. Like that also something that, you know, we talked about before is like, okay, now that we have the nation, now what? And it kind of brought back to that is like, okay, there's all these really sinister mutant and they're just running free. And then they're coming in and out of Krakoa at their will and no one does anything. So, you know, it just like, I think I was mostly disturbed and upset by that.
Oh, okay. I have several small things to get through to maybe spur us onward here. I'll try to get to them quickly. So first of all, the cape smells gag. And of course we're cape stands here on this program because we love all the cape gags. It made me regrettably have a serious moment of contemplation about what Jamie Braddock must smell like since he was the last person with the cape, I think, which is...
And he was wearing it shirtless.
Yeah. And in that moment, I'm like...
Sweaty.
Damn it, Wells, I literally am here sitting on my couch thinking about the scent of Jamie Braddock. What have you done? What have you wrought?
And that's exactly what I was thinking because he's insane. So obviously he doesn't bath or he probably changed the reality around him to say that he smells good. And he doesn't. But the cloak,
plumage
you can't convince a cloak that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's like we got a couch that was stuffed with a certain kind of feather. I don't know these things. And I was like, does it smell like poultry in here? And my partner's like, well, the couch is stuffed with bird feathers, Peter. And I'm like, I didn't want a poultry flavored couch. Anyway, that just made me
now I'm thinking about it, what he smells like, and I can't get out of my head now.
Okay. But a couple other things. So it's interesting because Tyler and I have more Mastermind context than the two of you. He is a huge part in the original Dark Phoenix saga. And he's definitely one of these very sexual assaulty kind of characters. But it brings up a theme that I've been talking about in New Mutants, which is like, it's fine if you don't kill humans, but if you go around like mind assaulting a bunch of mutants, then you're cool. And I think that I've really been waiting for like somebody to truly deal with the ramifications of that. And I'm like, well, couldn't get more perfect than Mastermind to deal with the ramifications of how we're going to assess these kinds of characters living on Krakoa. So now I have two kind of... Oh, and one more thing. Anytime there's a whole who's drinking the poison, which one, I always think of the Princess Bride. It's just my number one people trying to poison one another bit, you know, well, like with the switching of the cups. Anyway, so I thought of the Princess Bride. But here's the question I want to kind of send back around to everybody else. At the end of this sequence, it's titled The Benign Betrayal of Nathaniel Essex. Benign meaning sort of like not really meant in a negative way, right? It's just small, minor. do you think that's Mastermind's betrayal of Sinister, or is Sinister actually putting one over on Mastermind? Mastermind seems to think he's going to have to go through the protocols if they ever even find a dead body, but we know that Sinister does not have to use the protocols if he doesn't want to. So who betrayed who here? Tyler?
I mean, that's a good question. We are being led to believe that Mastermind has the upper hand here. But Sinister has clones too. So who knows if this is the, Sinister Prime in the sense.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, but I am looking forward to find out, because I do enjoy the writing, and we are going to get another crazy character right at the end. So,
Fariha, any thoughts on that? Who betrayed whom here?
I would say that Sinister was up to no good. I don't know, because I feel like maybe Mastermind is up to something and Sinister got in before that, and then now he's trying to one up. But the thing is that Mastermind is also operating under bad information that that the body has to be found and everything. So which kind of makes me think Sinister is more in control. I'm Team Sinister, you guys. So I want to be Sinister. So that's where I'm going with this.
Harry, who's got the upper hand here?
I didn't know Mastermind that much as a character. I didn't know his rapey tendencies, which is awful. But like reading it, I didn't get the sense that this was like an all-powerful master thinker, even with his name. So like,
no,
it
he
did
ain't
seem
smart.
like no. So I was kind of surprised. I was surprised he got the one up on Sinister like he did. So it would not shock me if this is like part of a larger plan, because I was like, this guy got Sinister, even though So I am thinking, yeah.
And how do we know that this is the Sinister we've been following all this time?
Yeah.
Because he has clones running around, and maybe because the thing is the fact that the way he was talking about the cape, it didn't feel like he knew what happened to the cape. So it felt like he didn't know where the cape was. He just got up and put the cape on. Like, it just felt like that. And then he kind of put himself into this whole circular logic of like, well, I can't put the cape out because I have to wear it. But if I put it just this whole thing. So I'm actually kind of thinking, well, it's not the Sinister we've been following all this time.
And this is gets to the bottom of why I actually love this scene, not just because Sinister is in it, not because it was double cross, but I want to ask these questions. Like, I feel like sometimes leading up to X of Swords, there weren't a lot of open-ended questions in the book, which made it feel really different from the whole Hoxpox vibe. And like, now we're starting to get into some real what ifs. And that just makes me really, really excited. Not only like, was it the actual Sinister? Did Sinister just plot this whole thing to begin with? And also, how does that relate to it coming out that Sinister has his own like homegrown backyard clone factory here, which I'm pretty sure nobody else is supposed to know about. And it does kind of feel like all of these titles, each of them are picking on one thread that they're going to start to unravel that is going to kind of bring down this whole Quiet Council balance. And certainly with Way of X coming up by Simon Spurrier, who's going to write this Nightcrawler book, feels like it's going to have a lot to do with this kind of societal discomfort with Utopia. So I'm super fascinated by all that.
Yeah.
Fariha seems like she has one more point to get in. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one more question though. But knowing Sinister the way you know him, does it feel like he is someone who will just take tea being handed to him?
Princess Bride is my answer to that question.
He's very
I haven't
vain.
watched Princess Bride. Right.
Oh, it's a good one.
I've read the book.
The book is verbatim. The movie is verbatim the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, I don't remember the poison scene, but anyway. So the thing is, like, I don't know. I mean, it feels like he's not someone who's just. At least that's what my takeaway from it, from knowing him a little bit, was that he's just not someone who will be taking tea just being handed to him, unless.
But it's arrogant enough.
He is very vain. but it could be like another clone who's maybe not as on the ball as Sinister Prime. So that's that. I think this makes sense, like in a way.
No, maybe he just betted the other clone. It's like, hey, you drink the tea. If you lose, you drink the tea. We have seen him
We've seen that happen
before.
So I don't
that's why I was just thinking.
I don't want to gatekeep at all about Princess Bride. Not everybody has seen all the same geek movies as everybody else. It's incredibly charming. I would suggest it to anyone, especially if you have kids in your life to watch with, because it's a very works on separate levels movie. And the whole thing of the poison scene is if you have two people, each who is trying to poison the other, which one of them would willingly take the cup and why, without totally spoiling the confrontation in the book and in or the movie. And in The Princess Bride, both people have very good reasons to drink the thing that they think they are drinking. And that's why it made me think of this Sinister and Mastermind scene. But moving on now, this is going to be the open discussion forum for everybody. We have a training montage here. A lot of things happen, including an all-grown-up Orphan Maker, which I know we're all hotly ready to start talking about. But we also have some stuff with Wild Child being the alpha. We have some stuff with Hellion annoying or possibly flirting with Alex. It's hard to tell. So I just open the floor to anybody who really wants to talk about the cast here, starting with Fariha. What is worth pulling out from this middle section of the book?
So this is the first time I'm realizing that Nanny's still in the gold ball egg. I did not realize.
Tyler keeps talking about it.
So I know. Okay, so last time when Tyler talked about it, I kind of remembered it, and I'm like, okay, I have to check it out. And then I saw it. I'm like, oh, geez, my God. And then also, I was kind of excited about knowing what Orphan Maker's power actually is, because it seems like no one knows, and everyone was very scared. And that plot was kind of sort of just, washed away. And I was a little disappointed by that, but I also like that his being honed means now he's going to be a teen rebel against his mom. Like, it's like, no, I'm cool now. Call me Pete. So that was pretty funny, because I'm like, oh, okay, he wasn't actually a adult person all this time. So he was pretty. So that I thought
he was
that
a 5-year-old basically.
Yeah, like, all this time. But then he's also like, apparently he's buffed up now. So everything is like over pressurized for him. So, so I thought all of that was a pretty cool. But, and then as for the other characters, I mean, Empath constantly is still around, is like gross. But then the rest of them, I was like, okay with, like, yeah, like he's like, his hone-in is now like, he cannot be one, like, he is now the alpha all the time, or I don't know how that
he's too horny for his own good. It's the issue with Wild Child.
Which is really a way that you could explain a lot of the X books, but Wild Child has that specific issue right now.
Yeah, and then he's also kind of sad about, like, it was like, my pack flounders, the females ignore me, think me weak, and then the way he just does it is like, oh, it's like Shakespearean about it. I thought that was hilarious.
Which is something that I mentioned earlier. I think Segovia's art don't usually convey that kind of things, like, but in this case, in this issue, I feel like he actually stepped it up. Like, it's like there's a lot of body languages, a lot of cues in terms of like how they are standing, sitting, or whatever, that convey certain messages, which is not clear in some of his other earlier issues, and which I thought was really, really interesting. Like, he's maturing in when as you work with these characters, he started doing a lot more with them.
There's a lot of angst in that page where he's just like, the girls won't talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of emotion there. It's funny, but it is like, that's like genuine, like, there's a good expression,
But he does look like a squished up version of Sabretooth. Like, he's drawn in a way. I was like, he just squished Sabretooth. And because for a second while, I'm like, wait, is this? And then I'm like, no, it's not that one.
Fariha, I'm never going to unsee that now of this character.
Well, the other thing about Orphan Maker is that his armor has been broken before, and like black stuff has spewed out. So I wonder if his powers is actually related to that.
I guess I'm the odd man out where that Orphan Maker scene, I was actually very tense during it. I'm like, oh my God, don't wake him up. This kid's a problem. Like, oh no, and now he's suffering. This is so bad. Like, I really was like uneasy with that. Just please, this kid's got a cursed life. And apparently he's like a walking doomsday device. Yeah. Like, I don't know where this is going to go, but it won't be good.
Yeah, it struck me as very kind of like, I don't know if there's any X-Files fans in the group or out there in the ether, but just the whole kind of like black oil X-Files kind of thing. Like, what is it exactly that's leaking out of his body? And like, what is it going to do when it finally touches somebody? And why does it create so much tension that he's like super strong when he's in his suit? You know, it just, the whole everything about it creeped me out. And I just also think that, Wells plays with some really creepy vibes about archetypes here. Like Nanny, we previously saw her as this kind of very maternal, don't worry, I'll take you under my wing, Mother Goose type. But here she's almost being treated as like a femme fatale mommy, like almost kind of like hot stepmom mom, which is even creepier because she's Nanny. And when she's like, no, like you can't watch me get changed anymore, little boy. And I'm like, this is legitimately disturbing.
I don't like it.
So other than that part though, I'm gonna say that Nanny's motherhood being honed means she's now an Asian mom. Because like that's exactly what I was gonna say though, because he is like, I don't need you, dummy. And it's like, oh, fine. I have other kids. My mom said that word for word to me when I tried to say something, but I have 3 younger sisters. And my mom is like, okay, like, you know, you don't need mom. I have other 3. And he was like, no, mom, please, no. So I understood that scene and I'm like, oh, so she's a honed mom, means Asian moms are honed.
Oh my god.
Like, you know, that's what it is. So, but the thing is the whole, like, hey, you can't see me change. I was like, whoa, what is that about?
There are some distinct takes on this scene from person to person.
Yeah, well, and also,
that's awesome though.
I mean, I'm never going to forget that now. But also talking about archetypes, like I really feel like Wells, in a really abbreviated sense, almost has like all of the terrible people that you will meet in high school, like all lined up. You know, it's like Orphan Maker, who's like, it's too tight, I don't like it, don't make me wear these clothes, mom, I'm cool now. And then you have, you know, Alex, who's like, I'm a good dude, I'm just lifting weights. And then you have Empath doing whatever he's doing. And then you have Wild Child, who's like, I'm the alpha now, but why don't girls like me? Like, it's just like the whole rainbow of toxic masculinity. It's like the toxic masculinity Power Rangers or Teletubbies, perhaps, just all arrayed. And I just feel like nobody had to say anything because it was just right there. And then for it to be bookended by Nanny closing the doors and at the end Kwanan coming through the doors, I just was like, this is just smart comic making. Like, there's just so many funny little levels here. Yeah. This is what I'm looking for when I say I want good X-Men comics.
It's just like dripping with personality. Like there's so much going on with each page.
All right, other comments? I don't know, Tyler, if you've had the chance to go all in on the montage here, but before we move on.
No, it's fine. I mean, you guys touch on everything. I just find the relationship, the bonding between Greycrow and Wild Child a little bit weird. I couldn't see that in real life, so I don't know how to read that. Like, it's like, okay, what's happening here? It's like, you know.
Yeah, I think Wild Child is
it had a very much of a no homo energy. You know,
yeah,
like it's like, oh, we're like,
it's a bro energy, but it's a weird bro energy.
Wild Child is clearly
but the thing is, no, sorry, Harry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna joke. He's on Incel Avenue, and he eats all the friends he can get to get him away from that place. Like, please give this guy some camaraderie, like, please.
No, but it seemed like a lot of us like, yeah, we're gonna like, you know, do this and touch it, like, oh, no homo guys. Oh, it really felt like that. Like what Peter said, Teletubbies of toxic masculinity.
But also, I just realized, you know, I'm in the middle of original Greycrow when he had a different name and he was just basically the guy who liked to murder people. And I really enjoy that. I think if you want to see, he hasn't been in a lot of comics, but if you want to see the progression to here, you have to read a little bit of how Matt Fraction used him in the middle of Nation X. And now he's kind of like this person who's like, you don't have to just be a tough ass person all the time to be a dude. Like, who's going to outdude Greycrow? I'm not going to walk up to Greycrow and like be like, oh, you're not much of a man because you don't like to kill people anymore. Like he's he's got some major man vibes going. And so I just think it's really interesting, again, to like turn it on its head and use the character who maybe was the worst character previously to kind of comment on all these other characters being bad. But let's move on. So the rest of the issue takes a really interesting course. The team has a little bit of a briefing with Sage, whose systems are like a little out of whack, and they go through this gate because Sinister's supposedly been abducted through the gate, only to fall directly into Mastermind's trap. Of course, Sinister wasn't abducted, which calls into question how much of this scene with Sage is even real. What is real? Because did Sage actually see or think she saw Mastermind take Sinister through the gate? Did the team think they see Sage giving them this explanation? Have they even left the island? Yes, because of the cliffhanger, which we'll get to. So again, I think there's a lot of different little things to jump into here, but I'd like if everybody can start with like, when do you think Mastermind actually took over? And then also, what else did you think about this whole sequence of events, starting with Tyler?
I couldn't decide. I think, and I think that is actually, Well's intention. Like he did not want you to know when things is a hallucination and when it is real. So I mean, it could have happened between Purgatory and Point. It could have happened after they step through the gate into Central Park. It could happen anywhere in between. So my initial thought was that, oh, the whole thing with Sage is fake because she couldn't even bring up images. But then I was like, well, but if Mastermind is actually making up all those things, he would have been able to produce those images in the Hellions' eyes. So maybe he basically, did one round with Sage first, and then when they get through to Manhattan, he took over.
Harry?
Yeah, I mean, that's effectively what I thought. I thought that Sage was basically kind of like bamboozled a bit and was giving them, bad info. And then the minute they walked through the gate, that they got warped, brain warped. What's fun about this though is that I'm still not sure. Like, I think this is that kind of like unreliable narration that's done really well, where it's just deft enough, but just enough impact that you're in it, you understand it, but you're not quite sure. And that's a hard line to walk, because we've mentioned other books that are disorienting in a bad way. I think just disorienting in a good way. And I just want to say real quick, just the moment where Sage is like, the big dramatic moment where she's saying that Sinister's gotten captured and they just all start like laughing. That is the moment of the week for me. I belly laughed. It was so like just like perfect bit of storytelling. It's so funny. But yeah, I think the back half of this book rules. I think just like not knowing what's going to happen next but still being kind of locked in, that's a very fun line to walk.
Fariha, so when was the wool pulled over their eyes, and what else did you think about this whole sequence?
So, as Daddy Claremont said, you should be making up your own story between panels. Apparently he said that in somewhere. So I read it today. So from that point, I am going to choose that for my sanity, because I am so mad about Krakoan government, that all the Sage scene was real, that she wasn't so easily taken over by Mastermind, because I need to believe that. Because seriously, like no, then all of this, a lot of other things falls apart. If for me to not think that. So I think that all of that was real, because the way they kind of laughed about it, because all of that was real. I also think the letter was also she faked the letter because she, I think, feels sorry for them, or, trying to give them a bone. And I think the letter is real, but she kind of presented a different, information out of there. I think as soon as they stepped out of the gate in New York, in Manhattan, that's when they were taken over. I just need to believe that. I just need to believe that Mastermind just couldn't walk over and then took over one firewall in Krakoa, do all of this, and then just do only this and not anything weird, like anything more, and then just left because, okay,
And assuming that it is actually the gate to Central Park, it could be somewhere else entirely.
Oh, no, get to whatever. I think it was like the gate to like, gate
Yeah.
what at
So
that
when
time
they
the
step
gate
out
was
the
moved.
gate, yeah, I mean,
Maybe he actually like confused the gate, because the gate is alive.
It's just
right?
cool. Yeah, it's an
Krakoa.
extension of Krakoa.
Yeah, so maybe he confused the great gate and then sent them somewhere, and then from there on he took over.
Yeah.
I think they also got in the limo as well, and then after that, won the way. They were
no, that I
just
didn't think. I do not think
over.
they did.
They might have just been doing chair pose in the middle of a
Yeah.
field. Like I don't think they necessarily
Yelling at each other.
That's just weird, isn't it? Because now you're like, if you're looking from the outside, these people are just sitting there, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, what the hell?
Well, and to be clear
Yeah.
about Mastermind, the way his power has always been paid in the past is that he does make semi-tangible illusions for the person experiencing the illusion, and sometimes they can just be in a hallway. Like if we go back to the classic hypnosis of Jean Grey that he does, like she thinks she's in another time, in another place. She thinks he's attractive. She thinks all sorts of things, and they're just kind of like talking on a bench somewhere. So he does have the ability to make you feel like you're physically somewhere very else than where you are. To me, I love all of the theories because I think Sage's memo is the thing that makes this the most interesting on a few different levels. Sage originally is a Hellfire Club character, so she has some knowledge and some thoughts of Mastermind. And she's a human computer. So if Mastermind wants to put one over on Sage, he's got to do it really carefully. And so I actually, after kind of reading it and then going back and reading again, I think they all did share the scene that they shared in Sage's lab, but I don't think any of them was experiencing the thing that they thought that they were experiencing. I think Sage may have actually thought the team was caring about Sinister and did go off eagerly to save him and then wrote the memo truthfully. I'm not actually convinced that it was sarcasm or her covering up for them. Like I honestly think maybe Sage thinks she saw that, which then took me like a whole layer deeper than I was to begin with, because I'm like, well, what did they get? Maybe Sage didn't say anything that Sage said. I would not be super shocked if we got a replay of this scene with different dialogue overlaid onto it in a future issue. And I wouldn't be shocked if that didn't happen either. So I do think they went through a gate at some point, because I do think that clearly they're in some version of Murder World. Now we can get into a little bit of the final reveal here with Arcade, who I would argue Arcade's not really a great final reveal. He's not, he's more of a set up the issue guy than a reveal guy, but we can talk about it. But a couple of things I want to point out here. So Arcade, not a mutant. And here we're getting into a theme that we discussed last week, which is mutants as currency, right? He doesn't just want to put them in Murder World to test them. He's got them because they're currency. So then that brings up the question, why would Mastermind be in league with Arcade? Why would Arcade want these mutants in particular if Mastermind could tempt anybody? Also, we do see Sinister alive in this final scene. Is that an Arcade robot? Is it a clone of Sinister? Was Sinister not dead from the T to begin with? Did Sinister actually get abducted? Questions on questions on questions. And then the final thing I'll throw out, because I don't have a whole lot else opinion-wise, I'm really interested in what you have to say, is I personally like Arcade when he's a little bit more arch and a little bit more ridiculous. I think in Avengers Arena, he was pushed to this place where he was almost Carrot Top, and Carrot Top, the comedian, has been in Vegas for so long. I mean, he has this hair, but it's bright red, and he's gone from just being this like silly, nerdy guy to almost being this steroidal giant muscle guy, but then also almost being in like drag makeup. And it's just like so many different layers of camp on top of camp on top of camp that it actually can be a little bit creepy, not because of any one of the thing, but because of the discordant nature of looking at all the things at once. And I like when they take Arcade to that place now. When we just go to like Poindexter with the bow tie Arcade, he just doesn't work for me anymore. Like I just need like a little bit, I need it to be a little more elevated than bow tie Poindexter Arcade for me in the year of Lord 2021. But that's just me. So Fariha, what do you think about this final Arcadian twist?
So I love Avengers Arena.
Me too.
I love it.
Great book.
So the thing is, like, so based on that, I was thinking that, I was also going into the whole mutant currency, and maybe he wants to create another arena or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, why these weirdos? Like the new mutants are hanging around without any protection. He can literally go back and pick them back up. And I think, we're going to talk about runaways. They're hanging out wherever. A lot of them hasn't even been arrived in Krakoa. He can go pick them up as well. So it's like, so that's why I'm like, why them? Why these weirdos? What is he getting out of there? But, so that's why I was like, we'll see. Like, that's why I said this is more of a setup issue. I'm excited to see where it goes. So,
well, this is also the first time the Hellions were not sent on a mission.
True.
So this was a time where, you know, they actually fell into this whole thing. But I want to point out something. I think, I mean, it's quite obvious that like Quanon and Greycrow, you know, I mean, Wells is going to develop their relationship because as they are falling, they are both sort of reaching out to each other. Well, or at least we are meant to think that they are both reaching out to each other from the panel placements. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Also because, you know, I mean, Quanon at this point in time is kind of a blank slate. So for her to really, you know, sort of like hone into Greycrow, I thought that would be a pretty good pairing, actually, I think.
Harry, any final
they also have that moment.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to.
No, I was just gonna say that they also have that moment before, like, you know, in X,
the AI,
in
AI.
Hellions, like the We Should Before. So
I just want, it's a tangent. I want to say before I forget that I used to work at an office near Orlando, which is near where Carrot Top lived. And we'd see him every once in a while, like drive by on his moped. The most surreal experience of your life is seeing Jack Carrot Top on a moped drive by. Anyway.
I'm so jealous now. I'm fully jealous.
I'll never forget, just like, is that Carrot Top like going by? No, I like arcade
only
fine.
in Florida.
I know, it's the most
right. That's
Florida
such a
energy.
Florida, only in Florida. But do you think the arcade Carrot Top analogy works? Like
it does. It's very apt. It makes sense. I love Avengers Arena. I think arcade's fun depending on the writer. For me, I'm more agnostic to him. I don't know why he's going for these freaks and weirdos in the Hellions, but I just think Wells is going to crush it. I'm like, oh, this is the right character, the right person to have in this book. So I'm just like, yes, this makes perfect sense. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, I think we have truly, really been through this whole issue. Does anybody have any remaining thing or receipt they would like to expose before we call it a day on Hellions number 9?
You actually just crushed me telling me that I have to sit through more of Jean Grey being duped and whatever hell in upcoming Epic X-Men reread.
Oh yeah, plug for our other program.
Yeah,
other show as well. But I'm just like, oh no. One day, Peter, you're gonna make me realize why you love Jean Grey. Because as of now, I'm like, why? But anyway.
Well, that's a lot of pressure. But if you all want to listen to that happen on a weekly basis, we're alternating episodes on our podcast and also on our channel, their Epic X-Men reread, where Tyler and I are lovingly going through the original few years of Claremont leading up to the Dark Phoenix saga and dragging Fariha, sometimes excited, sometimes kicking and screaming along with us. So that's always a really fun watch. But
they're masterminding me, guys.
he's the original gaslighter. He like really hits so much now because he's the OG. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us for this sometimes raucous discussion of Hellions number 9. If you're looking for discussions of the other X-Men comic books out this week, you just got to look for other videos. We're going to talk about them all. But until we're back next time, for myself, Fariha, Tyler, and Harry, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this discussion because we really think that X-Men is best when, Fariha?
When it's read together.
That's right.
When it's read together.
I can't make a heart with my hands, but the sentiment is there. So until we see you next time on another episode of This Week in X, please be well.